Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. If you're looking for some undervalued investment opportunities, click subscribe. We're going to go over a gold and silver update. I threw some copper on the back end of this. And all the charts are exhibiting kind of roughly the same pattern right now. And I can show you what those patterns are on a very short-term basis. I don't like investing based off of the super short term. I'm more of a 5-10 year outlook type of person. So I want to catch the big move. I want to catch the many hundreds of percents or thousands of percents move. I'm not so interested in a 10 or 20 or 30% move. That's just kind of how I'm wired. I know some people, they like to go from trade. They like to swing trade basically. And they go from trade to trade to trade to trade to trade. And then you start looking at all the taxes that you have to pay, all the trading in and out, and the extra stress associated with that, and I don't like it. Don't want to do it. So most of the time, I don't do it. So let's jump into gold and silver. This is what I've got, and I've got some copper at the end. So these are gold and silver charts. Let's look for clues in the charts and see what they're telling us. Again, this is only financial education. I don't want you guys just blindly going into this stuff. Do your own research. Make sure the companies are right for you. And just don't go off of my own research. That's all. So here is GDX. This is an ETF. We've got the downtrend line. We were kind of pulling this downtrend here, and we broke it to the upside. We back tested, and we're moving on higher. Now, right here at the tip here, we're kind of coming to a decision point where the buyers are starting to equal the sellers. I'm going to zoom in on this decision point on the tip over here. So that's zoomed in. And you can see we're forming this kind of pennant wedge formation here, where the buyers and sellers are kind of coiling up. So I think we're going to move somewhere fast very soon. Usually what happens on a pennant formation that's more sideways like this, if you're coming up before it, usually it's a continuation pattern, and hopefully it breaks to the upside. Now, that doesn't mean that it's always a continuation pattern. We're dealing with statistics and probabilities. So what I see here is I see good movement up, another nice big move higher, and I think we're going to move to the upside still after we break out of here. Hopefully that's the case. So that's what I see on GDX. SILJ, it's doing the same type of pattern. This is a bigger, longer term perspective. We've got this kind of resistance line coming through here. We broke through it with this nice big up day on some volume down here. So we broke through this line, and now we're sitting and just resting on top of this resistance line. Now it's a support line. So it was resistance, broke through, and now it's support. Let's zoom in on this section over on the right-hand side. We got the same pattern. We basically have like a pennant wedge formation that's occurring right now. We've got that line that's coming through here, which has support to the downside. So I think this might break to the upside. We have to wait and see, but I think path of least resistance is going to be to the upside. I think we'll break out of this pattern shortly, and hopefully it's to the upside. So that's what I'm seeing on SILJ. Very similar to GDX. Here's Discovery Silver Corporation, just to give you another outlook on this is a smaller exploration, well, I'll even call it a developer of a mine company. They do have a lot of silver already. They're still exploring and proving up some more reserves, but they're also going to develop this into a mine. It's one of Eric Sprott's largest holdings. And we've got this resistance line right here, and we're just playing with this resistance line right now, where we're breaking up kind of above it. It may sit and go sideways for a little bit when it breaks through here, or maybe not. Sometimes these things just blow right through. They blow up a good 10, 20%, and then they kind of pull back a little bit, and then they take off again. So it's hard to know the exact path, but what we do know is that it's breaking this resistance line right now. So that's a good positive development. Here's Wheaton Precious Metals, another royalty company that I like. We're coming on up, and we're kind of just in this channel. You can either put the channel sideways or kind of upward. It's coiling up and it's kind of just moving sideways right now. Momentum's to the upside from previous move. So I think hopefully we break to the upside of this little pattern here and we head on higher. And now if we don't break this pattern, it's a very small pattern. And if we head lower, which it very well could, we've got kind of a bearish piercing right here. We could break out and kind of just go head down a little bit and then make kind of a U-shaped bull pattern or something, or kind of zigzags down a couple times before it moves on up. So we'll see. We just got to wait and see which way this thing breaks. Not that I'm going to do anything different. I'm still going to hold. It's not going to change anything from my perspective. Here's Mag Silver. The momentum's continuing to the upside. It's very large up days, small muted down days. So that looks good. Looks very good. And then I'm going to switch into copper. I know I talked about copper today. I'd like to go over some charts here. This is the Global X Copper Miners ETF. We've been in this kind of slow pullback here. We are contracting a little bit, which means the opening and closing price on the day contracted up a little bit. Usually that means that the buyers are equaling the sellers as this body of the candlestick contracts down. So I'm looking to see some strength. I want to see strength. And then what I do is I buy into strength. So I like to see strength first, or I'd like to see a day that's a reversal day, like a hammer, where it kind of comes down and then comes shooting back up, or a bullish engulfing, some sort of pattern that says, hey, look, the bottom is in. Or at least a high statistical probability that the bottom's in. Now, this is what we're kind of looking for. We're coming on up. We pulled back a teeny bit, but we've got this bullish engulfing right here. That's a bullish engulfing pattern, which usually means a statistical probability that it's going to continue either sideways or higher. And don't be afraid if this thing pulls back too. If we put this in and it pulls back to here, it's still game on to move on up. So I think this one looks all pretty good. Here's Glencore, another large copper mining company. Nice, good momentum coming on up. And it's in an uptrend. We're just continuing to move in an uptrend. So that's good. Antofagasta, we had a nice little bearish engulfing, which means it's going to head lower. We sold off, and now we're contracting. The opening and closing prices are starting to contract. And what that means is that the buyers are starting to equal the sellers, and that a short-term bottom could potentially be put in place. So I would be looking for strength and buying into strength on something like this pullback here, if you like Antofagasta, which is a copper company. Nova Royalty, again, this thing's just moving on sideways. We're putting in here's a little hammer, but we're putting in this black candlesticks. These black candlesticks, usually they kind of want to go down the next day. But this thing's just been in a tight, very tight price area where it's just bouncing back and forth, moving sideways. At some point, this sideways movement's going to end, and I think it will hopefully resolve and end to the upside, not to the downside. Now, even if it goes down, I just buy more. So it's a win-win for me. If it goes down, I'm going to buy more. If it goes up, my holdings go up. That's how I view Nova Royalty on a long-term basis. EMX is another royalty company. They have precious metals and copper. So this is kind of an everything royalty. So if you guys are interested in the everything royalty, EMX is the royalty that I would look at. But it's been trying to get through this massive congestion period through here. It usually goes up there and then it sells off. Goes up there, sells off. So it's still fighting this very strong 340 to 380 resistance area in there. And it's trying to break through, and it's encountering a lot of sellers. Now, it's not that it's bad. It's just trying to break through. It's going to take some time. So that's what I've got for today in terms of gold, silver, and copper. I think these are going to be great long-term investments. On the very short term, we've got some weakness on the short term in terms of some of the copper plays. In some of the gold and silver, we have to see which way it breaks on that pattern. So pattern breaks on gold and silver. Hopefully they resolve to the upside. I know a lot of people like things going up. I'm kind of indifferent. When you look at these things from a long-term perspective and you start investing more and more money, I kind of become indifferent to the price movements. If something goes way up, that's great. If something comes back, usually I'm well behaved enough and I'm good enough at picking what I think are pretty good stocks that if they come on back, I just cost average in. And cost averaging, you got to almost cost average in, because these things are going to remain cheap for, let's say, 6 months, a year, maybe even 2 years in some of these scenarios. And what I do is I cost average in over that entire time frame. And whenever I see something that's down, that's when I get excited. I'm like, ooh, I can get this. And then I buy some real quick in the account. And then usually that turns out working very well. I don't buy into weakness. I let the weakness kind of come down, pull everything back, and then I wait for the turn to come on up, and then I buy it. I buy into that strength. That's about the highest probability chance that you can kind of catch a somewhat close to a bottom. The only time I don't worry about that is if it's not a company that can go bankrupt at a bottom. So it's more of a precious metals, physical metals. And I just go when the ratios tell me. If it hits below this, I am just going in and I'm going to cost average in continually, irrespective of what the price does, because it's below the cost curves of the producers. At some point, it has to go higher. Otherwise, that precious metal ceases to exist, because they're not going to infinitely mine this stuff at a loss. So that's kind of been my approach. Cost averaging in, looking for things that are down, and when they come back down, that's when I get excited and I start cost averaging in more. Hopefully this helps you. Give me a thumbs up on the content. If you guys like the content, leave any comments, questions, concerns in the comment section below. Love to hear what you guys have to think. And thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.